Russian President Vladimir Putin has fired a fresh warning for the US President Donald Trump and the NATO bloc. Putin has warned Trump against supplying US Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, alerting the West that the move could lead to a new level of escalation, including an impact on ties between Moscow and Washington.
Can Tomahawks harm us? They can. We'll be shooting them down and improving our air defense systems. Will this damage our relations with the US, which are now seeing some light at the end of the tunnel? Of course it will, but how could it be otherwise? Using Tomahawks without the direct participation of American military personnel is impossible. This would mark a completely new, qualitatively new stage of escalation, including in relations between Russia and the United States.
At a foreign policy forum in Sochi, the Russian strongman cautioned the US. Putin said that any supply of the cruise missiles will not change the balance of power on the battlefield. Remember, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has requested the US for the Tomahawk missiles. This when he met the US President in New York on the sidelines of the UNGA. Only so that Ukraine can strike deep inside Russia. But Kiev's Western allies that form the NATO are reluctant because supplying the Tomahawks would directly risk a bigger conflict. As has already been indicated by Russian government spokesperson Dmitry Peskov on Monday. Peskov indicated that any supply of Tomahawks by the US would mean crossing the red line, raising critical questions about who can launch these missiles. Meaning, can only Ukrainians launch them, or do American soldiers have to do that? And who is determining the targeting of these missiles? The American side or the Ukrainians themselves? Brings us to the question, why is the Tomahawk missile being chased by Ukraine? Because it's one of the few missiles that can help Ukraine penetrate deep into enemy territory, that is Russia. Tomahawks are long-range subsonic cruise missiles. They can be launched from ships, submarines or ground launchers. They have long-range, deep strike capabilities and can hit targets up to 2,500 kilometers away. They carry high explosive warheads designed to penetrate hardened targets like military bunkers. Tomahawks are also fast, meaning they can avoid radar detection by flying at high subsonic speeds while maintaining low altitudes. The US Navy has used Tomahawks since the 1970s. But why has Putin sent a strong word of caution now? Remember, the US president has shifted his stance of late on support for Ukraine against Russia. In fact, Trump's frustration with Putin has been mounting further after a failed Alaska summit in August. The irony being that Trump has always boasted about his friendship with Putin, alas, with zero results on the battlefield. But most importantly, the shift in stance could spell trouble for the West. Here's why. So far, the US government under Joe Biden restricted Kiev from using US weapons to strike Russia, only to avoid an escalation of tensions with Putin. Ukraine was allowed to target Russian positions in occupied territory. But in the latest, Zelenskyy has revealed that Trump has allowed a shift in strategy against Russia, asking Zelenskyy to strike in a tit-for-tat manner. For example, strike Russia's energy infrastructure if Russia targets Ukraine's energy resources. As for the Tomahawks, a report on Reuters has dismissed the United States' desires to send Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. As per the report, it may not be viable because current inventories are committed to the US Navy and other users. So far, in Putin and Trump's game of chess, the grandmaster has clearly been the Russian strongman. But if Trump is indeed serious about changing his position, will that mean Ukraine is now going to be in a position to reclaim its land currently in Russian occupation? It's a possibility one cannot deny, only if Donald Trump ceases to contradict his own decisions.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.